Oh my gosh. What a good episode. I know I say this, it seems like every time, but I really think this was one of the best of the season, if not the show. Like, so much happened, finally. A lot of different things happened, but I still can't believe that we're almost done with the season. But yeah, this was just an incredible episode. Let's discuss. We start in the 2015 timeline, as we often have, of course, with Bree's wedding happening. She's on the phone with someone having what seems like a very serious discussion, or at least leaving a very serious voicemail, where she's telling this person to leave her alone because she wants to have a happy life and happy family. And it seems like this could be Oliver. That's how the show is setting this up, is that she's still talking to him however many years later, and he's getting in the way of potentially her marriage, which is wild. That is something that I did not expect to see. But obviously we don't know if it's confirmed that it's Oliver yet. However, I think it's what we can assume. What do you think? It also, I think, gives insight into why Bree eventually takes Evan back. She sees a happy future with him, and things with Oliver must have gone south in some way, because she's saying, it's the night before my wedding. Leave me alone. I want to move on. And we also get that running theme again of being a good person, because she says, I want to feel like or be a good person again, which is interesting. We're finally getting to see a different side of Bree. Also, we get a hint of Bree's, I guess, nicotine addiction or just use, because Evan says, he questions what she's doing upstairs, and Bree says, I didn't want your mom to see because I quit 6 months ago. And so it's kind of a symbol for how she's still talking to Oliver and he's still in her life somehow, is how I interpreted it, because he introduced them to her in the first place. And then, as this show has done all season, we get an absolute banger to kick it off. Roses by the Chainsmokers starts playing, which I fact-checked. It did come out in 2015. It did. It seems to be the dinner before the big wedding day. Lucy's walking around. She looks anxious. Max comes up behind her, and then she jumps a little bit, and he's like, oh, you're jumpy tonight. You're on edge. And she says she's just thinking about all of her bridesmaid duties. And he's like, yeah, okay. And I think Max just is kind of fed up with Lucy's reaction to Steven and how anxious she gets about him. Like, at the mixed bachelorette party, I was annoyed at him that he said, why do you care so much about him? Like, it's fine. But I think for him, it just feels like she's so emotionally attached to him still. And I think that's why he looks so annoyed that she's acting so strange. Lucy sees Bree, they talk, and she asks Bree if Lydia's coming tonight. Bree says no, she's not feeling well, but she will be there tomorrow. Lucy's like, okay, good, noted. She doesn't want to see her, obviously, but why tonight? Why is she a little bit on edge about Lydia tonight? Ooh, and here's a good moment. Guess who walks into this restaurant event space? And Lucy and Bree both see. It's Diana, because you know whose date she is. She's Pippa's date. And can I say, first of all, I love this styling on her. She looks gorgeous. This look fits her so much better than all that weird preppy stuff she was doing in college with like the little headbands. She looks so much more confident and like herself here. I love it. And Lucy's like, did you invite Diana? And Bree says, no, I haven't seen her in years. And then guess who comes up behind Diana? Pippa. So it's clear that they are together. Pippa and Diana kiss, and the reactions are just so funny. Bree is like, are we hallucinating? And then we also see the guys. Well, we see Steven and Wrigley, and they look kind of interested, especially Wrigley. And then one other guy with them who we don't know. I don't think this is a new character. Does anyone have any theories about if he's important or not? I don't know. And the four girls, even though they're shocked, they have a nice little moment together. They seem happy for each other. It seems like they've moved past the Diana stuff finally, because obviously she's not connected to Steven anymore, and she must have changed. Diana steps away, and they talk about how it's weird, but if she's happy, then they're happy. Okay, and sitting down at the table, Max asks Diana and Pippa, how long have you two been together? And Diana says, it depends who you ask. And I'm wondering now, do they start seeing each other while she's still with Steven? That is going to be juicy. But clearly he never knew because he was shocked to see them together now. Steven stands up to give a speech. And I just roll my eyes every time he comes on the screen. Does anyone else groan every time he starts to talk? I don't know if it's just me or the show is doing such a good job of making you feel everyone's emotions, but I could feel the collective sigh in this room when he started to give this speech. So he sings Evan's praises. And we get a little bit of Steven's mindset insight here. It reminded me a lot of the book, because in the book, you get the chapters from the perspective of both Steven and Lucy. And Steven says, I never got how any relationship could be worth so much work. I think that just shows a lot about how he treats other people and why he puts in effort and where. And of course, it wouldn't be Steven if he didn't give a little dig to Lucy and now Diana. He says, love is about finding that one person worth changing for. And it seems like he's looking right over in Lucy's direction. And then he says, I had a few false starts, a few big mistakes before finding the person I wanted to change for. Oh my gosh. And Lucy and Diana have a great moment here. They just give each other these looks like, oh, thanks. You really had to throw that in there because it's so true. Aren't we past this? You really had to say that? Oh, that was a good moment. He finishes his toast. He sits down. Lucy's looking at him. It looks like he kind of looks back at her and then almost winks. Did anyone else catch that? Was that just a weird Steven quirk? Or was that some kind of signal to Lucy? It was so subtle. And Lucy does this little face back. Their subtle face acting is so good. Then she's back in her hotel room. Max is in the shower. And she's texting someone, and it's like, we know it's going to be Steven. And it is. Funny thing here, if you see the contact name she has, it's Steven, do not respond, or do not answer. She says, we need to talk, meet me at the pool. And he says, give me 15 minutes. Oh no, Lucy, what is going on? Max finishes his shower and comes out. And at this point, I'm thinking, oh no, this is bad timing. How is she going to sneak out and see Steven? She says, I think I need some fresh air. So I'm like, oh, she'll just use that excuse and go take a walk. Poor Max. But it turns out she brings Max with her. Because next thing we see, Steven is walking down towards the pool. And as he's approaching, you hear some sounds, some breathing. And turns out Lucy is with Max in the pool, hooking up, and Steven is just standing there, seeing this happen. This was a crazy moment. Lucy is staring directly at Steven, who's staring back, but Max has his back turned to Steven, so he has no idea that he's just showed up and is watching this happen. And Lucy's got this vengeful look on her face. It kind of reminds me of when Steven came into her dorm and tricked her. And Steven, he's like, yep, you won this time. You fooled me. So that was crazy to see Lucy do it back to him. It's really not something I expected of her character this season because she's been trying to change. But I guess it just shows she got wrapped up in his web again. He doesn't look away. And I think he's kind of enjoying it in his sick way because even if he's not winning, he still wants to be wrapped up in this love-hate thing with Lucy. That's what keeps him going, is having that relationship and that battle that never ends. After the title card, we are back in the college timeline. We see Lucy and Leo. Their relationship is still going strong. And then we get a hint of what's going to happen in this episode when Leo looks out his window, sees that it's snowy, and is like, oh, Thanksgiving break. We're going to be snowed in. I read the preview on the Hulu description before I watched this episode, which kind of gave that away too. It was like, everyone's going to be snowed in and have to go to one place, which is kind of an obvious plot device, but it does end up working. And it becomes, I swear, it was like Shakespearean in nature. The way all these things were happening in the same place, all the characters were locked in together. It was so good. So I'll forgive the potential cheesiness or basicness of that idea. Lucy is super relieved because then she doesn't have to spend Thanksgiving with her mom and her mom's boyfriend. But little does she know she'll have to spend it with someone else. Not much better. Then Leo gets a call. He looks annoyed at it, doesn't pick up. And he says, it's my mom. So Lucy asks if everything's okay, and Leo says, just puts me in a bad mood to talk about it. Very similar to Lucy talking about her mom in season 1. Leo talks about his tough relationship with his dad, and Lucy tries to be helpful and suggests potential forgiveness, which reminded me a lot of the Christmas episode last season where Lucy was with Max in that hotel room, and Max was trying to give her suggestions about how to deal with her family and how they made her feel. Takes us pretty well, and he's like, listen, this is different from the situation that you have with your dad. And they move on. There is just this theme of your parents and how your parents affect you and how you interact with others in your life. So I'm not sure if it goes further beyond that. Then Bree is in this long line for the school-provided Thanksgiving dinner, and she's on the phone with Oliver, talking about how he's away for the weekend and probably won't be able to talk much because there isn't a lot of privacy. They announce that the Thanksgiving dinner is sold out. So what is Bree going to do for Thanksgiving now? Evan and Wrigley walk in. Evan's talking about how he thinks he needs to break up with Molly because he's taken it too far. And like he said in the last episode, he doesn't really want to be in a relationship right now. They spot Bree, and Evan's like, oh, there's Bree. You think I should say hi? And Wrigley's like, no. And then Evan's like, I think I'm going to go say hi. And he is just still so clearly into her. So he marches right on down there. He asks how she is, and she's like a little disappointed because they just sold out the dinner. So she says it's going to be ramen and vodka in her dorm room for Thanksgiving, and he's like, that's bleak. And they're cute. Evan's like, oh, at least it's not Taco Bell with that one weird neighbor. And Bree's like, that was the best Thanksgiving I've ever had, which I guess is some inside story from one of her past Thanksgivings that only Evan would know about. So it was very cute, and they have a little laugh. Bree is just so happy, clearly because she's really into Oliver. She's not even thinking about Evan. And she says it was so good to see you, and then when she leaves, she kind of pats him on the chest. And Evan, his reaction, he's like, she wants me, bro. She wants me. Because she was super nice and friendly, and she was not acting like some kind of hurt ex-girlfriend who'd been cheated on at all. Evan comes up with this idea that he's going to invite her to his house for Thanksgiving. He says Molly's going to Bedford. It's perfect. So here commences the plan to have Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving at his place. Bree and Lucy are together in the dorm, and Pip comes in and says, we are invited to Evan's for Thanksgiving. It's so cute. Pip is on the phone with Wrigley, and he's talking and trying to be convincing. He's like, we got lots of food, we got a juicy turkey, and then you hear Evan in the background go, send her a picture of the pie. And then, again, you hear Evan in the background. I guess he doesn't know he's on speaker or that the phone can pick it up. But he's like, make sure she invites Bree. And Lucy and Bree just look at each other and laugh. And Pip is like, I'm gonna mute this. It is so cute and funny. And then they hang up and Lucy's like, Bree's not gonna want to hang out with her ex. But Bree's like, it might be fun. Like, we don't have any other plans. Steven's in his room packing up for the weekend. But then Diana comes in and says, we're not going. She explains that she had another huge fight with her dad, which Steven says she's been having these fights with him all month. And going back to the theory people had from last episode about her lying about her LSAT score so that she can get away from Steven, it does feel like it could be fake. I don't know why. It feels like she doesn't want to take him home, and so she's making up all of these arguments she's having with her dad. However, then she talks about how it sounds like how he speaks to her mother, and I'm just not fully sure. I mean, it does make sense that now she knows a little bit more about what actually happened with Macy, that she'd want to distance herself, but she doesn't really distance herself. What do you think is going on here? Do you believe that theory, that she's lying about her score? And Steven is so selfish. She's like, we need your dad's help beyond this petty argument. You gotta think about our future. Like, you have no sympathy for how Diana feels. It is completely about you. Completely. Steven weaponizes what he knows about her parents' dynamic when he says, if he's talking to you like he talks to your mom, maybe you're acting like your mom. That is a huge insult to her, and you can tell she takes that to heart. So, of course, Steven, to put a Band-Aid on it, says, I love you. Steven says, you're not acting like yourself lately. And I guess that is true because she's figured out, to some extent, again, what happened with Macy. And I wonder if Steven even has a clue that this is why. I guess that's why the LSAT thing could be a whole lie. I'm not sure. But Steven says, okay, so I guess we'll just stay here. Let's see if that actually happens. Another Drew moment. We then see Wrigley, who calls Drew, and it goes right to voicemail. And he says, happy Thanksgiving. I hope to hear from you sometime. So clearly he hasn't talked to him still. And I wonder, we don't know where Drew is. Is he in maybe a psychiatric hospital at this moment? Because then you'd think that he would have access to call. And he wouldn't be at home, because then wouldn't he just be calling his parents and saying, like, where's Drew? I am not sure how they're going to wrap this up, but I think we're going to have to know more about the situation in the next 2 episodes. Oh, also, Evan and Wrigley are at Evan's home. I wonder how close he lives to the school, because the whole point is, like, they can't drive home. I'm not sure where he lives, but next thing you know, Molly shows up at the door, and he's like, what are you doing here? And she says, oh, the roads are so bad. I'll just stay here. And Evan, this is not good for Evan. Oh, also, I just learned this week, apparently Molly and Evan, the real life actors, are dating. Isn't that fun? So we got 2 couples now that we know of, right? Yeah, I think those are the only 2. Evan's gonna have to figure out how does he tell Molly that Bree's coming, and she comes in and asks, as she's setting up the table, how many people are coming today? And Wrigley says, I'm so sorry I invited her. So we just know this is going to get really interesting, him trying to balance between these 2 girls. The 3 girls and Leo show up. Bree looks very good. She's got such a 2000s hairstyle, which I've noticed they're trying to do more of this episode. People have complained about that. I haven't had too much of an issue with it. I don't know. But Bree's got a little, like, bump it situation going on. Lucy's hair is crimped. I kind of love the crimped hair on her. And later on, Diana has a deep side part. Okay, also, I guess Evan's just not even going to think about the awkwardness of the Lucy situation, because, yes, he wanted Bree there. And, like, I guess technically that meant Lucy had to be there too, if Pippa was coming as well. But, like, why would he want to have Lucy there? I guess he couldn't really say, oh, bring both Pippa and Bree, but not Lucy. That would look too suspicious. So, I don't know. Bree meets Molly and is like, how do you know Evan? Molly says they've been hanging out for a little while. And surprisingly, Bree seems to get a little bit competitive or possessive. She says, oh, it's always cold in here. She takes off her sweater, revealing her very revealing top. And Molly notices this right away, too. And then they didn't take the turkey out to thaw early enough, so they're trying to figure out how can we thaw it. Someone suggests, I think Lucy, a hairdryer. So they're like, why would we need a hairdryer? Like, he's practically bald. And Molly's like, oh, don't say that. And she kind of caresses his head. And then Bree immediately says, I think I left a hairdryer in your bathroom. I remember where it is. I'll go get it. Bree! We have not seen this side of her. In the bathroom, Bree takes a little mirror selfie to send to Oliver. I don't know if this was some kind of coping mechanism with Evan, because she so clearly still likes Evan and just had that moment, so maybe she was feeling like, oh, well, I have Oliver in my life, like, I should interact with him. Feeling a little bit lonely and out of it. Maybe that's taking it too far and she was just doing this. Downstairs, the group is having so much fun talking, playing games. And then the mood is just totally ruined. Diana and Steven walk in. Did we really think we were going to get through this episode without them crashing or coming into this party? No. Diana does the most awkward, like, hello, happy Thanksgiving. And it's so uncomfortable. Like, why are they there? I guess they really had nothing else to do. Steven and Lucy share nasty looks. Then Evan comes out and says, I didn't know you were coming. And Wrigley says, so sorry, I forgot to tell you I invited Steven. Wrigley, he's making it so hard for me to keep supporting him. I know that he's such good friends with Steven. Oh, and he probably wanted to be nice, but like, what? It's so awkward. How did no one know? How did Steven not say anything like, oh, I'm coming? And Steven says, to cut the tension, oh, don't worry, I've had more messed up family Thanksgivings than this. Shut up. Then Pippa joins Diana in getting drinks together. And Lucy notices them being all buddy-buddy and is like, what's going on? When did they become so close? Then we're all in the kitchen, Steven and Diana are having this conversation where Diana says, it's so awkward being here with Lucy. She obviously hates me. Pippa is on the side and she's hearing bits of this convo. Steven gets a bit aggressive. He's like, we're not leaving. Your new daddy issues have eliminated any other option. And he says it in this awful tone. Steven's like, I'm joking, relax. But clearly Diana's upset, and Pippa clocks this and says, Diana, want to come make these mashed potatoes with me, and rescues her from that situation. Bree brings out her famous digital camera and takes a photo of Lucy and Leo. I'm still wondering if this camera and her photos are going to come up at some point. But then Lucy notices again Diana and Pippa at the dinner table laughing together a lot while they're making these mashed potatoes. Something that's not that funny. So she's like, I need some fresh air, and steps outside. I just noticed in the beginning when she steps out with Max, she also was like, I need some fresh air. But anyway, Bree says she'll join her. And Pippa notices them stepping outside together, which I think is a part of the reason she also gets close with Diana, because she feels a bit pushed away by Lucy and Bree, since she knows something is happening with them. Like, since they're holding secrets with each other, she must feel a little bit alienated. Bree mentions that Pippa's been acting weird all semester, and Lucy suggests, have you asked her what's going on, how she's feeling? And Bree's like, oh, it's just been hard to talk to her. But, I wish that Bree would just ask her, because then she could learn about it without Lucy having to break the promise. Bree is smoking, also, in this scene, so we know that this is something she's doing without Oliver now as well. And then she's talking about how she wishes she could spend Thanksgiving with her boyfriend. And Lucy's like, boyfriend? Because he's not. And I think it's dangerous for Bree to think of him that way, because then she's only going to be more heartbroken when it does end. Pippa then comes out and says, okay, what are we gossiping about? And there's this awkward moment because they're not going to say it. They're talking about Oliver, and they're not going to tell Pippa that. And then Pippa says, I feel like you're always talking about me. Lucy says, no, we're not. Pippa says, okay, so what were you talking about? And Bree makes a move here that I did not like. They're making her much more difficult to like this season. I didn't really understand this, actually. She says that Lucy was wondering why you're spending so much time with Diana. And it's like, really? Out of all the things you could have come up with to say, it had to be one that kind of threw Lucy under the bus? Like, that was frustrating. It's really awkward. Pippa says, I don't know, I'm just being polite, and I feel bad for her because Steven's being really mean to her. And Lucy says, Steven's mean to everyone, and Pippa just goes back inside. Lucy looks at Bree kind of like, really? And Bree says, sorry. Lucy shakes her head, like, in kind of a it's whatever way. And I think it's because she knows she's guilty from hooking up with Evan, so she doesn't have the right to really get mad at Bree, in a way. These comments affected Pippa, though, because when she comes back inside, Diana tries to make a joke about the potatoes, and Pippa's just like, I'm gonna go get a drink, and kind of ignores her. Steven and Wrigley are being bros on the couch and playing games and just fighting and punching each other, whatever. Leo across from them looks so fed up and just like, I can't deal with this. Which, when I was first watching this episode, I was thinking, yeah, Leo has good taste. Like, he knows Steven sucks. But we learn something later that changes that idea. Leo goes into the kitchen, and then Steven follows behind him. So when Lucy comes back inside, she's like, where's Leo? And goes to the kitchen, has a cute moment with him, asks to help cut up the onions. And Steven, oh my gosh, this leech, starts a conversation. He says, Leo, have you talked to Becca? If you don't remember, Becca was the ex-girlfriend that Lucy essentially met. Didn't really meet, she saw at a party maybe a few episodes ago. And Leo revealed that that was his ex-girlfriend and that she cheated on him. It's so obvious that Steven's trying to rile them up because Lucy turns around. Steven's like, oh, his ex. And Lucy's like, yeah, I know who that is. And Leo, thank God, turns around and says, Steven, what are you doing? Because, yes, that's what I'd like to say every time he opens his mouth. Lucy says, Steven, everyone has exes. But Steven's like, oh, well, I just didn't know if you knew the specific history. What is he saying, and what is he trying to say, and what is Leo hiding? Lucy and Leo start kissing in front of him, and Steven's just like, he just leaves the room. Also, Evan was in the kitchen hearing this whole conversation. Oh, I wish he could stand up to Steven and say, like, dude, stop or leave. Like, don't do this in my house. Okay, here's a moment. Oh, this was such a good callback to season 1. Steven goes and sits on the couch that Bree is also sitting on. She looks at her digital camera on the table in between them and picks it up. And he looks back at her and puts both of his hands up like, I'm innocent, don't look at me. And it was so funny. She's like, you are not doing this again. You are not getting my camera again. Wrigley and Pippa are on the couch across from them. And Bree and Pippa have a great moment where they just look at each other and they just get up and walk away. They're like, there's just no need to sit here with Steven. Just get yourself out of there. So they walk over to the table and Molly and Diana are having a conversation about the sorority email that went out about Chris. And Molly's saying, I want to believe Katie, but they're both drunk and that there are these few other things. And Diana tries to say, like, no, that's not necessarily true, or you don't know that, kind of defending the whole situation and Katie because of Pippa. Pippa then is like, I have to go to the bathroom. And Diana also gets up and leaves because she loves Pippa. But now it's kind of funny because who's left at this table? Bree and Molly. And Molly is very upfront and honest and says, I hope this isn't awkward, but do you have any residual drama with Evan? And Bree clears it up. She says, no, I promise, like there are no vibes. Which is kind of a lie because clearly there are with the way that she was acting, but whatever. And she also sort of lies about why they broke up. She said we're just better as friends. Bree also then reveals that she is seeing someone new. That's pretty dangerous. She's getting into very dangerous territory. It assuages Molly's concerns, but I think there is going to be an issue with that. Back in the kitchen, Lucy asks Leo, what did Steven mean by the other stuff? And Leo just brushes it off. Also, Wrigley comes in and says to Evan, Molly and Bree are talking, probably about you. And Evan just immediately dashes out of the room to see what's going on. Evan takes Molly aside and says, why are you talking to Bree? And this moment also reminded me a lot of a few episodes at the bachelor party, or bachelorette party, where Lucy was asking Max, why are you being so friendly with Steven? And it's clear because there are some residual feelings of some sort there. But then Molly says, why are you so worried? She's seeing someone. It's fine. Evan's shocked. He says, what? She's not seeing anyone. I would have heard about it. Well, you wouldn't have heard about it if it was a secret relationship. Ugh, and poor Molly is like, should I even be here? Kind of ruins the vibe between them. Wrigley is up and he looks around and sees Diana and Steven just sitting, saying nothing on the couch. And then Evan and Molly having this serious conversation. And then Pippa and Bree just sitting at the table, not talking and on their phones. And he's like, you know what? We need to have some fun. I like his intent, but with this group, there's always going to be drama and everyone should be separate. But he calls everyone in. He says, everyone get in here. And he says, we're going to play slap shots. Has anyone else heard of this game before? Is it real or was this made up for the show? Apparently, it is a game where you pick someone to take a shot and then you slap them. That is not going to go down well in this group that already has a lot of tension with each other. Leo says, yeah, no, I'm not going to play that. And Steven opens his mouth and says, what's wrong, Leo? Like, what's wrong with you can't handle a little controlled violence? Stop. The vibes are wild. First, Bree takes a shot and Lucy slaps her. And then Bree makes Lucy take a shot. And Bree slaps her. And they cut to Steven's face. And he enjoyed seeing Lucy get slapped. That little man. Then Lucy gets Wrigley. And this girl can slap. And we see Steven. He is not enjoying this game. I don't know what he's thinking. But no one's picked him. Maybe he did want Lucy to pick him because he wants that drama. Then Wrigley picks Steven and slaps him. And I just know everyone watching, we were all like, yeah, like some kind of like relief, contentment for seeing Steven get slapped in the face. And Lucy stifles a laugh. And Diana is outright laughing. She is not hiding her laugh, which is so funny to me. Like, no one cares. They're enjoying it. Then it's Steven's job to pick someone. He's looking around the room. He focuses on the couch with Lucy and Leo, and he comes right over. He picks Leo. Lucy's looking at him like, are you kidding me right now? And Steven gives him a hard slap. I'm getting nervous now. Is this gonna trigger Leo? Because that was with some violence. Leo, I'm so glad he doesn't pick Steven back. He avoids that situation and he picks Pippa, has her take the shot, and then doesn't even slap her. He's like, I can't. Thank you, Leo. So now it's Pippa's turn. And she's like, who hasn't been slapped yet or picked yet? And Diana just in the corner, like, kind of shyly raises her hand. I'm like, Diana, she really wants Pippa to pick her. Diana's obsessed. She gives Diana just, like, this light tap on the face. Lucy looks so uncomfortable. She's like, what is going on? Then Diana, she's all giggly, and she's like, I'm gonna get you back. So she goes to Pippa. Diana gives her a real slap. I don't know what is going on, what this aggression that is being released is about. But then poor Evan in the corner, who's pretty much been ignored this whole time, is like, hey, am I gonna get a shot? Like, what? So Pippa comes over, picks him, but Pippa says, I can't slap you, you're the host, so who do you want me to slap? And Evan immediately says, Steven. I love Lucy's little smirk in the back as she goes over. Like, she is living for this. And so am I. And Pippa smacks him. People jump out of their seats. Bree laughs. It's a lot. Unfortunately, though, as much as we love to see Steven get slapped, that means it's now his turn to pick someone. He takes a few seconds, gets right up, goes right back over to Leo. Lucy's like, come on. And oh my gosh, if I were Diana, I'd be pissed too, because he's clearly targeting Lucy's boyfriend. Ah! Well, are they really boyfriend? Yeah, pretty much her boyfriend. Lucy and Pippa share this look, shake their heads, and then Leo and Steven stand up face to face, and Steven smacks him right back. Lucy literally flinches, and no one's really laughing after this one. Steven's kind of teetering back and forth on his feet, but staring at Leo. And Leo looks like he's trying to almost not cry, like he's trying to regain his composure. There's so much anticipation, wondering if he is about to unleash his rage onto Steven. And this is so what Steven does. He eggs people on until they kind of see the point of no return. They can't go back from it. Leo says, let me get you a shot, Steven. And Lucy's like, Leo, she's thinking this is not a good idea. Please don't give in to him. Evan's in the corner scratching his head. And I wish he could just kick them out. Because it really is like, this stuff is always happening in Evan's house. I wish he wouldn't allow this to happen. But Leo pours Steven his shot. Everyone is on edge and watching. And then I'm so proud of Leo. He stands there, he looks like maybe he's about to get ready, then he cracks a smile, kind of like touches Steven's ear and says, you're adorable. This was so good. Leo goes to sit back down, Lucy looks very pleased that a fight didn't ensue, and Steven looks pissed. Again, this kind of reminded me of that scene where Steven egged Lucy on and came into her dorm room. There's a lot of this kind of push and pull energy going on, and egging people along, but then seeing if they'll take the bait. And it is weird. Steven looks very uncomfortable. Even Diana at this point looks uncomfortable. Then Evan says, you know what, my turn. And guess who he picks? He picks Bree and just starts, he doesn't say anything, he just starts filling up her shot glass. Bree is like, and then Molly is looking at him like, Oh, and this was cringy. This is like so hard to watch, but he smiles, he goes to put his hand out to slap her, but then just ends up like caressing her face. Oh! Was anyone else dying at this? Again, everyone's uncomfortable. Bree wants to change this subject, so she says, okay, who's next? Molly. Molly holds out her shot glass, Bree pours it. But while she's going to pour it, Molly just like sneak slaps Evan so hard. That was satisfying. That was a crazy moment that I did not see coming. Everyone gasps, and Wrigley's like, Molly, Bree was supposed to slap you. Like, obviously. Oh, and then Evan gets up to run after her. Everyone kind of disperses, just wanting to be done with this game because of how weird it got. Are we surprised? Lucy and Leo go back to the kitchen, and they're kind of like cuddling, swaying. And Steven looks right over at them. He just cannot get enough. Steven slowly gets up, walks over, and is like, Lucy, have you ever actually met Becca? Oh my gosh, it's embarrassing for him. It's upsetting that he gets what he wants because it's like so obvious what he's doing. So Lucy's like, why are you talking about stuff that has nothing to do with you? And Steven has this moment where to Leo he says, oh, so you haven't told her. Excuse me? Leo says what we've all been thinking. Steven, why do you insist on being the most annoying person in every room? Very true. But we get a reveal here. Ooh, Leo comes clean. I kind of wish he pulled Lucy aside and did this, but he says, so you know how she cheated on me? Well, Steven was the one she cheated on me with? Lucy's like, why didn't you tell me about this? Leo says, we'll talk about it later. Whoa, this made me feel a bit differently about Leo, because I don't know if you thought this too. My mind was suddenly like, was he trying to get back at Steven by getting with Lucy? Did he know all of this beforehand, that Steven was with Lucy? I don't know, because he was abroad, but it probably wouldn't take a lot of asking around to figure this out. Tensions are high, because then Evan comes in and is like, shoot, Molly left. And Leo says, you realize that this is what he wants. This conversation happens all the time. Last episode with Lydia, Lucy was saying the same thing to her, saying, he's saying all these things because this is what he wants. Oh my gosh, and then Leo's like, he wants to upset you. And Steven says, why would I ever want to upset Lucy? Diana comes in and is like, why are we talking about Becca? And then we learn that Diana knows, and it's kind of a part of the reason why Steven and Diana broke up. So Lucy's questioning Leo if this is why he got with her. Steven is just standing there watching this whole thing. Like, he might as well just get some popcorn while he stands there and enjoys what he did. And it only gets more intense. Steven keeps butting in, and then Leo says, you have to stop. Your obsession with me is pathetic. And Steven's like, Lucy's obsessed with me. Ooh, and then Steven's like, has she told you about any of the stuff that she's done? And there's a moment, and Steven and Lucy look at each other, and she's like, yeah, don't you dare go there. So Steven just says to Leo, oh, the stuff she did with my sister. Essentially, it was about the stuff that we saw last episode where she sent her the voicemail. So now that Lucy's in it, she yells at Steven. She says a bunch of stuff. Go off. And says that everyone's waiting for you to screw them over. And she mentions Diana. Then Diana's like, don't mention me. Like, keep my name out of your mouth. Whoa. This scene was so well written. It had you on your toes the whole time. Because then Lucy says to Diana, really, you think this guy who has treated ever the girl horribly is going to treat you well? And then Diana says, some girls make it easy to get treated like shit. Oh my gosh. I know that we've seen some of her interactions with women, but that really put the nail in the coffin for me. Like, that was an awful thing to say. Awful. And it's so victim blaming, which is ironic because she's been so helpful with Pippa. So like, Diana, what are you doing? Ooh, but then Lucy does something that I wish she didn't do, and she slaps Diana, which like kind of satisfying in the moment because what she said was so awful, but oh, this looks bad on Lucy. And it's tough because even though Steven's been awful this whole time, it's been a lot of like the verbal stuff, but when you bring out the physical, it tends to look really bad in other people's eyes. And Steven yells at Lucy to get out. Leo's already storming out of the house. Lucy runs out after him. Leo says, this thing with you and Steven, it's too much, it's sick, which is true. Leo speaks some truth, but then Lucy says, what about you carrying this secret? Which is also very true. Like, clearly she has had a relationship with Steven, and he has been lying by omission this whole time by never mentioning it. Lucy kind of bites back at Leo and brings up what happened in the coffee shop again. And Leo opens up even more about his upbringing. He says his father would come for him, and then he would go after his mom, and that one day the only thing that stopped it was when Leo hit him back. Lucy apologizes, but it's really too late for this now, and Leo says, I don't think I can do this anymore. Lucy doesn't put up a fight. She just says, if that's what you want. And Leo leaves. This is so sad because Lucy was getting close to him. They were really deepening their relationship, and just like that, Steven rips it away from her again. I mean, I do think the stuff with his ex was a little bit weird, but for what it was at the time, he seemed to be really good for her. Lucy comes back in. It's obvious that she's been crying, and she says, I'm gonna go. Bree offers to leave with her, and then Lucy apologizes to Diana. They don't say anything back. And she leaves, and it's really sad. Pippa even says then to Steven, like, you're such an a-hole. And I'm so glad she keeps doing this in front of Diana, because it's like, how can you be all nice to Pippa, but then also still be with Steven? Evan asks to talk to Bree, and here's where he says, are you seeing someone? She says she is, and she says it's serious. And Evan's like, how could it be serious? We just broke up. But Bree fires back and is like, it's kind of easy to move on when the person you trusted betrays that trust, which is valid. But then she's like, no, you don't know him. He's older. And Evan's like, older, like a grad student older? And Bree reveals that he's 45. Evan's like, he's 45? And I feel like Bree thinks she's so sage now, and Oliver's really gone in her head. She says guys are the worst at your age. And you can tell that Evan is worried about her, and he even says that. He says now some creep is trying to take advantage of you, and Bree's like, he's not a creep. And you can just see how these kinds of conversations only push Bree further into Oliver's arms, because it kind of alienates her. You know, if everyone else thinks he's a creep, well, I'll keep it to myself now. And you're being mean, and he's nice to me. And Evan spits truth when he says a normal 45-year-old man does not want to date a 19-year-old, which is true. Obviously, hard for Bree to understand because it's different if you're in the situation, but from the outside, it's like, we know. Ooh, and then he says some stuff which is like, it's true. Oh, but I wish he hadn't said it out loud to Bree. He says he knows how you grew up. He can probably tell you're looking for a father figure. And like, yes, this is true psychoanalysis-wise, and that's what I was thinking too. But I think for Bree, that is not something pleasant to hear. That is offensive to hear. So she storms out of the room and the house entirely. There's a very awkward silence now at the table. And Wrigley cuts it by saying, I think the turkey's still frozen. Pippa asks Diana if she's all right and says she still can't believe what Lucy did to her. Pippa clearly, wow, she really cares about Diana because Lucy, she has been better friends with for much longer. Didn't Pippa hear what Diana said leading up to the slap? I don't know. I guess she really just feels a lot of sympathy for Diana because also she's not on the best terms with Lucy with all of the secrets that have been kept. Pippa finally confronts the issue, and she says, Steven's not very nice to you. But Diana shrugs it off. Lucy and Bree are back at the dorms comforting each other, and then at Evan's house, both couples are sleeping in the same room. We learn this because we see Pippa sleeping next to Wrigley, or not sleeping, she's awake, and she's texting someone. We see she sends it to Diana, and she says, I cannot sleep with Wrigley's leg crushing my body, which was funny, and Diana laughs. So just more bonding for them. And kind of funny because they're bonding while they're literally sleeping next to their boyfriends. I didn't realize that at first either. They're sleeping on the couches, which is funny because I feel like Evan would definitely have guest bedrooms, but respect to Evan being like, I'm going to sleep in a bed, you guys can sleep on the couches. The next morning, Evan's feeling awful. He says in the kitchen to Steven, I try to be nice to people and not let them down, but I end up upsetting them more. And Steven says, yeah, I gave up on that a long time ago. Which, of course you did. And he says, even my little sister stopped caring about me. And he says, even my little sister now hates me. So I guess they probably haven't talked since she left. And he says, I think I just stopped caring if people think I'm a piece of whatever. It's like, did you ever care? Did you ever care in the first place? Then Evan laughs and says, I think you care more than you like to admit. Which is also true, because he's always doing these actions with other people in mind. He cares about Lucy in some kind of way, because that's why he is still interacting with her and trying to egg her on all the time. Back at the dorms, Bree is looking at Evan's Facebook page. I think she's liking him again. But, of course, who calls? Oliver, and she picks up right away, so happy. Oliver is like, I've been thinking about you all weekend, blah, blah, blah. And Bree shuts her laptop and keeps talking to Oliver. Okay, and then this final scene was so good. It was so powerful. We see Lucy. She's in some school building and walking down the hallway. She looks like she's been crying all night. I really noticed that they toned back her makeup for this part. A lot of this season, she's been very heavy on the eyeliner. But here she looks so sad and like innocent and naive. And there's something really youthful and sad about her appearance here. Even just her expression. But the makeup as well enhances it. She's walking, and of course, who's sitting at one of the desks on his laptop? It's Steven. She looks up, you can tell she's like, of course, but she keeps walking. Then Steven stands up right in her way so she can't move and starts talking to her. And he looks so smug. He says, how did the rest of your night go? And he knows it didn't go well. He knows that they broke up. It's very clear. So just the fact that he looks so pleased with himself, Lucy just replies, you win. And Steven's face changes. Lucy waves this white flag. She says, can this please be enough now? And Steven's like, can what be enough? Acting dumb. Lucy has no walls up. She's just completely vulnerable here. And she says, I never wanted any of this. And it's true. It's like, it was the first day of freshman year and she had no idea it was going to go down this road or end up like this at all. And she says, I loved you, even though I knew exactly who you were. So why are you punishing me for that? And wow, it is just Grace Van Patten's acting here, and even Jackson White too. Like, Lucy has these tears just welling up in her eyes. You can tell she is so done with everything. She cannot go on any longer this way. And even Steven, he's listening very intently. He's hanging on her every word. And it seems like he's affected by what she's saying as well. Steven looks like he's trying to think of something to say and he's trying to get words out of his mouth, but before he even would have a chance, Lucy walks off. There is so much on Steven's face here. I don't even know if it's sadness, regret, guilt, shame, all of the above. And also, Look What You've Done by Jet starts playing, and that is a heartbreaking song. So I just felt every emotion in this last scene. It's wild how we come full circle in this episode, because here at the end, Lucy's saying, why are we playing this game? I don't want to be at war with you. But in the very first scene, we saw in the 2015 timeline that even 7 years later, Lucy is still partaking in it. So interesting. Let me know your thoughts on this episode, what you think is going to happen next, and I'll talk to you next week. I cannot wait.